What's going on, guys? It's Zach here. Bring guys with a fantasy football video. Let's be going over my sort of like 6 to 10 sort of trade targets that I'm looking to acquire ahead of week 6 in the NFL. It's been super exciting first 5 weeks, and at this point, we're sort of getting to the point where we can really start sort of incorporating how your team is performing in terms of how we want to identify which players we want to be drafting. That sort of comes into play. I'll go over like 5 or 6 players that I'm super excited about buying low on regardless. And I'll talk about some players that I've been looking to buy depending upon your record. Because, if you're 5-0, 4-1, you can afford to take on some guys that are maybe injured or going to miss some time. And if you're 2-3, 1-4, 0-5, then okay, it's time for you to maybe start taking a look at getting guys that are going to be able to impact your team right now and help you get some wins because it's time to start winning. Once again, I'll apologize. I'm still traveling for work, so don't have my complete setup. So it's just sort of recording this all in one take, sort of getting everything out for you guys as much as or as best as I can without the usual setup. But hopefully you guys don't have any problems with it. Hopefully I'm still getting you guys the information you want. And as of course, as always, if there's any specific trade questions you guys have, feel free to let me know in the comments. I love interacting with you guys there. It's a lot of fun and really love helping you guys make those trades and all that. So yeah, with that, let's just get into the first player here. First player for me, someone I've talked about a ton this year, and that's going to be Chris Olave. I think this is maybe his second or even third time on this buy low list, and he finally scored in week 5, which is really great to see. He was also super close to a second touchdown as well down the left sideline. Caught the pass, landed in the end zone, ball sort of popped out. He seemed to think he got the touchdown, but the ref disagreed, and obviously didn't end up counting as that second touchdown. But he could have had a much bigger day, and really the real issue here was just that a blowout limited the passing volume for the Saints. They won 34-0 against the New England Patriots, who are just absolutely awful. They're not a team that's going to perform at a very high level. It seems like this season, that's going to be a situation where you don't really get too much production out of the opposing team's passing game. So that being said, Derek Carr did look much healthier, and he should be very close to 100% very soon. They also have the easiest rest of season schedule for NFLs for wide receivers in the entire NFL. That's really fantastic. We're going to see a lot of production about Chris Olave. That dominant stretch is going to come. They get the Texans this week. They've got matchup against the Bears, Lions, all really great matchups coming up in the near future, and there are going to be some really dominant performances coming from Chris Olave. And I really think that at this point, a lot of people are sort of viewing him as like a mid-tier wide receiver too, and I really do think he's going to be that top 10 wide receiver overall in the season. We just haven't seen that really boom week production yet. We saw the first 3 weeks be really great. We saw Derek Carr get injured and sort of hamper this production for the roster, but Chris Olave is going to be great, and you really should be targeting him. He's a guy that I personally think should be probably at the top of your trade list or trade target list this week if you can go get him. After that, we've got Rhamondre Stevenson, and this one's that it's one that I'm a little bit less confident in, but I do want to bring him up. It was really easy to predict another really bad game for Rhamondre in week 5. He was banged up coming into the game with an injury, and they played up against an elite defense. Top that, they got blown out, so game script didn't really favor him, especially because for whatever reason, the Patriots really haven't been involving him in the passing game. That certainly limits his upside from a fantasy standpoint, and it's obviously why we're not seeing him produce at a high level. But the schedule for them does soften up going forward. They get the Raiders, Bills, Dolphins, Commanders, and Colts over the next 5 weeks. That's a really solid production. All those teams are teams that you can run on and can certainly put up fantasy production from running back position. And I really do still think that Rhamondre Stevenson's probably like a solid running back 2 the rest of the season. He probably doesn't have that running back 1, like top 5 running back upside that he maybe had earlier on in the offseason, but I mean, he's still a talented player. I know it hasn't looked great for him so far this year, but this Patriots offense is just really bad. They're going to have to find ways to mix it up. Juju Smith-Schuster left the game with an injury last week. That should open up more opportunities over the middle of the field. And I do think they're going to have to use Rhamondre the passing game a bit more if they really want to get this offense going. They've been absolutely brutal. They're going to have to mix things up. And Rhamondre is one of those most talented playmakers. They're going to have to get him the ball a lot more. And I think that you can get him for super cheap right now. I've seen some really just shocking trades in terms of how much people are willing to give up on him. And if you got a fantasy manager in your league who's got him, I would certainly kick the tires on it and just see how willing they are to move on from him, because I really do think he's going to be a player that you can use and be a really solid fantasy contributor for you. And I think he's never going to be cheaper than what he is right now. So he's worth kicking the tires on at this point. Next, we've got Jonathan Taylor. He had a much hyped return to action in week 5. He signed that big 3-year contract with the Colts, and he is going to be a starting running back for Indianapolis for the next 3 years. And honestly, that's really exciting. I'm really glad to see him back on the field. He's too good to be sitting at home on Sundays. And it's really exciting that we get to see him. But the fact of the matter is, Zach Moss ended up stealing the show against the Tennessee Titans. He posted career highs in total yardage, scored twice, ended up with over 30 PPR fantasy points. And Jonathan Taylor played less than 20% of the snaps in this one. He only had 6 carries for 18 yards. And the fact of the matter is, they were just easing him back into action. And we shouldn't have expected him to be a workhorse or anything by any means this week. And this next week, he'll probably end up being a like low end running back 2 for me, a guy that probably ends up pretty evenly splitting the snaps with Zach Moss. And obviously, that's not going to be great. But after that, I do fully expect Jonathan Taylor to at least at some point, we know it's going to happen where Taylor is going to regain that workhorse role in this offense. Zach Moss has been too good. He's not going to completely go away. You'll probably get like a 70-30, 80-20 split. And given that many touches to Jonathan Taylor on this offense, it's looked really good. Their offensive line is much better than what it was last season. Gardner Minshew has been really solid for them. We know that Anthony Richardson's unfortunately banged up with that shoulder injury. He's going to miss about a month, but Gardner Minshew is honestly maybe a boost for the entire offense. He's more polished passer. He's going to throw the ball to the running backs quite a bit more, and that's going to elevate the upside for Jonathan Taylor for sure. I really do think Jonathan Taylor's a running back one the rest of the season, and obviously he's got running back one overall upside. We've seen him do that just 2 years ago. He was an absolute monster. This offense is just as good as it was back then, and he's a really talented player and certainly should get going here soon. So I doubt he's going to cost you that running back one price tag. He's certainly somebody that I think a lot of people are really disappointed in. They didn't get to play him for 4 weeks. He came in week 5. They probably threw him into their starting lineup because they were excited and got a complete dud. They're probably pretty frustrated. I do think you can get him for a pretty good bargain right now. So I would just kick the tires there and see how much he's going to cost you. After that, we've got Devonta Smith here. He's coming off of 3 straight disappointing performances. He's got 3 games so far this season with less than 5 targets. And I know that's certainly disappointing and honestly a little bit of cause for concern, but the Eagles do just have 3 high-end mouths to feed in A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert, who we finally saw break out with a big game in week 5. Hopefully my call on him being a really high-end tight end for you guys this season ends up bouncing back. It was good to see him perform at a high level, but really the issue here is the Eagles really haven't found themselves in a spot where they've been in a real shootout situation. They haven't had to put up too many points on offense just yet, and I do think that that's eventually going to turn around. On top of that, in most game scripts, when this is a team that doesn't need to air it out or doesn't need to put up 30, 40 points to win the game, it's probably going to be difficult for all 3 of these pass catchers to perform at a high level. Earlier on in the season, we saw A.J. Brown struggling to get going. Now it's been Devonta Smith's turn sort of being the underwhelming performer. But in general, we're going to see 2 of these 3 guys end up being high-end producers every single week. And it's just been unfortunate that Devonta Smith's coming off of 3 straight weeks where it hasn't been him. On top of that, we just know that Devonta Smith is still an elite player. He's honestly probably a top 15 wide receiver overall in the entire NFL. He's on an elite offense. He's going to be given plenty of opportunities to succeed. He's an elite downfield threat. He's going to be used a ton this season. He's going to end up being like a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 by the end of the season. And the squeaky wheel game is coming for him. They're certainly going to make an effort of getting him the ball, especially after a 1-catch game. I bet they open the game next week with a screen pass to him, and we'll probably see him get more involved going forward. And next week, especially against the Jets, where we'll see Sauce Gardner probably just shadow A.J. Brown, it could be a big week for Devonta Smith. The next 5 weeks or 6 weeks actually are really fantastic as well. The Jets are not a fantastic matchup. Then they get the Dolphins, Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, and Bills. Those are all teams that you can certainly throw the ball against really well, teams that are going to put up points as well. And we're going to see some shootouts for this team. It's going to be a lot of opportunity for high-end production from this offense. And it's going to be a really exciting next month and a half for this team. And Devonta Smith is certainly a piece that I want on my roster. So he's the one that I'd be targeting for sure. Another wide receiver 2 for his team that's been really underwhelming so far is Jaylen Waddle. He finally scored in week 5, and he did lead the team in targets with 10 targets, but he was just really, honestly, underwhelming. He wasn't very efficient at all, and we only saw him produce like 15 PPR fantasy points, but I do think that we're going to see a big game from him come pretty soon. The injury to Devon Achane is going to open up more opportunities. We've seen this be a Dolphins team that's really utilized the running backs out of the backfield quite a bit more than what we saw last year, and that's really limited the amount of volume they can really give to Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Normally, last season, we just saw it be only Waddle and Tyreek Hill and maybe a little bit of production from the back. But there's going to be a lot more opportunity for Jaylen Waddle going forward. He is a player that's always been a relatively boomer bust asset. I think about 40% of his games last year, he actually finished with above like 11 PPR fantasy points. And that means that for the other for those 40%, he was absolutely fantastic. He still sent it up as a wide receiver 1 last season. He's going to have a couple of week winning performances here. He's been obviously just underwhelming so far to this point. He hasn't really had that signature Jaylen Waddle performance. He missed a week with injury. He obviously hasn't performed to the level that people drafted him to be, and they're certainly frustrated with him. He's just extremely cheap right now as well in my second highest buy-in league. So pretty high buy-in. Certainly a bunch of people that take fantasy football very seriously. I just traded Jaleel McLaughlin and DeAndre Hopkins for him after this last week, sort of selling high on those 2. I think that it's certainly an easy price tag. It's something that I would do every single week, and I do really think that Jaylen Waddle is going to eventually be a really nice asset for you guys. So he's someone that I would definitely be targeting, especially if he's super cheap right now. And then something I'm going to start doing here, I want to start going over players that I would be targeting if you have, or just they're sort of record dependent. So guys that you sort of target if you are in a really good spot. Maybe you've got a really solid team, you've got a lot of wins, and you sort of want to just bank some players for the future, knowing that you're probably looking like a really solid shot at winning or making the playoffs, and then go over some players you'd also be looking to target if you're struggling right now and need to start stacking some wins. So just some guys that I've been looking to target if you do have a really good record right now. That'd be Justin Jefferson. We know he went down with injury. He's going to be on IR for the next 4 weeks, and I'm not really worried about him not coming back. I do fully expect him to come back after these 4 weeks. It's just a hamstring injury. It's nothing that should be too serious. Even if the Vikings are completely out of it, Kirk Cousins has a no trade clause. I don't really see him waiving that to go to a new situation. That's not really going to be that fantastic for him. I don't really see a world where he waives that no trade clause to go to the New York Jets or anything like that. And on top of that, we know Justin Jefferson, he obviously cares about his legacy and his numbers. He's been a player that's on a historic pace right now. It makes a lot of sense for him to want to miss as few games as possible just so that he can keep putting up that stat production. I know that maybe the Vikings will try to keep him out. This could be a lost season for them, but in the NFC, it's really winnable. And I do think Justin Jefferson will come back. And when he's back, he's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 again once he's back. And you can probably get him really cheap right now. I was super close to being able to trade Jordan Addison for him in a league today. I really think that's the kind of thing that you could make happen just because you want to trade a guy that will be more useful now, and then you'll get that guy that could be an elite producer for you once the playoffs hit. Top of that, T. Higgins is another guy I'd be targeting. Obviously, he's probably not going to play this week because they've got their bye next week. So you're probably taking on an asset that's not going to be useful for you for the next 2 weeks. But Joe Burrow looked healthy. He looked back last week. I do think that this Bengals offense is going to get rolling here soon. And T. Higgins is obviously going to be that high-end wide receiver 2 for you once he's back. And he obviously won't cost that with how bad he's been so far. Saquon Barkley is another guy I'd be looking to add. This Giants offense really needs him. He's one of the few workhorse running backs that I think might be relatively attainable right now. He's a guy that we know is going to be a top 5, at least top 10 running back the rest of the season once he gets healthy. This is the Giants defense that they're playing this next week that you can really run against. They're going to need to get him involved, and I expect him to come back this week. So I think you could get Saquon Barkley, but really, even though it's a sort of a tough matchup against the Bills, you're not taking Saquon on so that you can win right now. He's a guy that really is going to be a useful asset for you down the stretch. And if you're 4-1, 5-0, you can afford to maybe deal with a couple bad weeks. Same story goes for Aaron Jones. It's been really frustrating for Aaron Jones managers so far. He's going to miss this next week, obviously, because of their bye. After that, though, you're getting a top 15 running back the rest of the season. He looks like he's by far the most explosive player in this Packers offense. He looked really good in week 1. We just haven't seen him healthy since then. And when he gets back, he's going to be a top 15 running back and a guy that you certainly want on your roster. And the last guy I'd be targeting if you've got a good record would be Devon Achane. We know how explosive he's been. He's already the running back 3 on the season, having already missed 2 games, really. He only played like 3 snaps in week 2 and missed all of week. Basically, he's only played 3 games, and he's been just fantastic. We know how elite he is, how explosive of a player he is, and he will be back at some point. It sounds like he'll probably miss like 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks. Maybe they have to put him on IR, but when he comes back, he's too explosive of a player for him to not get on the field. We know what that upside is, and if the Devon Achane manager in the league is 1-4, 2-3, they might think they need to win now, and you can certainly get Achane for a pretty significant discount right now. Then some players that I've been looking to target if you've got a bad record, guys that I think are going to produce at a high level right now. I'd start us off with Mike Evans. Big boost for Mike Evans. He's already passed his bye, so you don't have to deal with that the rest of the season. That's going to help you along the course of the season. They get a really nice matchup against the Detroit Lions this week, so that's a good option. I've got 3 Vikings on this list as well: TJ Hawkinson, Alexander Mattison, and Jordan Addison. Their next 5 weeks are really fantastic in terms of their ability to put up points against the opposing defense. And on top of that, all 3 of these guys are going to have increased roles while Justin Jefferson's out. I'd expect a lot of production for them, especially this week against the Chicago Bears. All 3 of those guys are probably going to have really solid weeks. And honestly, TJ Hawkinson might be the tight end 1 for the rest of the year, at least while Justin Jefferson's out. Kyren Williams would be another guy that I'd certainly be looking to target. He had a bit of a down week last week, but he's still by far the workhorse running back in Los Angeles. They've got 2 really nice matchups coming up against the Arizona Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Really solid asset, a guy that I think is going to be a top 10 running back for the rest of the year. And I don't think he costs all that much. He's certainly going to be useful in the short term. Then Tyler Lockett would be another guy I'm looking to add. They've got, again, another player that's already through their bias. You won't have to worry about that. And it's obviously really important if you've got a team that's struggling. You want to make sure you've got as few holes in your roster going forward throughout the rest of the season. There's got 2 really solid matchups coming up against the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that's obviously going to put up some points against the Seahawks defense, and the Arizona Cardinals, who Tyler Lockett just always performs at a high level against. So that'll do it for this video. Up next, I'll be doing my sell high video. I'll go over about 5 players I'd be looking to sell high on, and then some players that I'd be looking to move depending upon what my record is. So hope you guys enjoyed that video as well. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm, helps me know that I'm doing a good job. As always, if you have any specific questions, let me know in the comments. Like I said, I love interacting with you guys there. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. We're at like 870 subscribers. I'd love to hit 1,000 by the end of the NFL season. So we need like 10 a week. Certainly seems like something we could do. I'd love to just hit that milestone. It'd be super cool. A big goal of mine for a while, so it'd be super appreciated. If you want to make sure that you get access to all the upcoming videos, like I said, we'll get the Sell High video out after this one as well. You'll get the Thursday night primer Thursday morning, then Saturday morning, you'll get the breakdown of every single game for the week. So if you want to get access to all of those videos, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel. You get access to all those videos. It's completely free. And I'm just going to be here to help you guys do as much as I can for the rest of the season and hopefully get you guys some fantasy championships. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video, and I'll catch you next time.